From the time that they were founded, HBCUs were dedicated to helping these students succeed.
What if I told you that without HBCUs, black culture as we know it might not exist? Hip-hop, politics, fashion, civil rights movements, all of it traces back to four walls you've probably never thought about, and yet nobody talks about it. But that's about to change. 1865. The Civil War just ended. 4 million enslaved people were suddenly free. But there was a problem. They had no schools, no universities, no institutions built to educate them. The South had no interest in educating freed black people. The North, indifferent. So black communities did what they always do. They built it themselves. Howard University, Fisk University, Tuskegee Institute, Hampton Institute. These weren't built on massive endowments or government funding. They were built on something far more powerful: determination. Right after slavery, when black Americans had nothing, no wealth, no political power, no social standing, they decided to build universities. Not homes first, not businesses first, universities. Because they understood something fundamental. Education was the only currency that could never be taken away. Take Booker T. Washington and Tuskegee Institute. In 1881, Booker T. Washington arrived in Alabama with almost nothing. No building, no textbooks, no money. But he had 30 students who were hungry to learn. And here's where it gets extraordinary. Those students didn't just attend Tuskegee. They built Tuskegee. They mixed clay from the ground. They made bricks, millions of them, with their own hands. They constructed their own classrooms, their own dormitories. They planted gardens to feed themselves. They learned trades while they learned theory. By learning a trade, by creating infrastructure, by refusing to accept no as an answer, they built a university from dirt. That's not just symbolism. That's the entire ethos of HBCUs right there. Self-sufficiency, resilience, the belief that your own hands can create your own future. While elite universities in the North were debating whether black students deserved to exist in academia, HBCU students were literally building the walls of their own institutions. And it wasn't just Tuskegee. This was happening everywhere. At Howard University, students were learning law and medicine in makeshift classrooms. At Fisk University, students were creating orchestras and choirs that would eventually tour internationally and fundraise for their own school. These weren't passive recipients of education. They were architects of their own liberation. By 1900, HBCUs dotted the landscape from Washington, D.C. to Atlanta to New Orleans, from Nashville to Philadelphia. These weren't prestigious Ivy League institutions. They were survival mechanisms. They were acts of defiance. But survival has a way of breeding excellence. Because when you're forced to do more with less, when you're forced to build from nothing, when you're forced to question every single system, you don't just survive, you innovate. And that's exactly what happened. Here's what the history books don't emphasize. From the 1880s to the mid-1900s, HBCUs were the only places where black genius could flourish. If you were brilliant, if you were talented, if you had something to contribute to the world, HBCUs were your sanctuary. They didn't just educate. They preserved black brilliance when mainstream America was actively trying to erase it. Martin Luther King Jr. attended Morehouse College at 15 years old. No HBCU, no civil rights movement as we know it. But it goes deeper than that. Thurgood Marshall, Lincoln University, then Howard Law School. He didn't just become the first black Supreme Court justice. He dismantled Jim Crow from the inside out. Oprah Winfrey, Tennessee State University. Without that education, without that network, there's no billionaire mogul. Without HBCUs, there's no generation of black leaders who fundamentally changed this country. But here's the stat that nobody talks about. HBCUs represent just 3% of American colleges. Yet they produce 80% of black judges, 50% of black doctors, and 40% of black engineers. Let that sink in. 3% of colleges, producing half of black America's leadership. That's not coincidence. That's infrastructure. That's culture. That's a safety net that nobody else built for us. HBCUs didn't just teach skills. They taught identity. They taught students, you belong here. You are enough. You are brilliant. In a country that told them the opposite every single day. They created an ecosystem where black excellence wasn't just accepted. It was expected. It was celebrated. It was the norm. Now let's talk about culture in a different way. Not just leadership or achievement. I'm talking about the art, the music, the visual language that defines black culture right now. And it all starts with marching bands. Southern University, Jackson State, Florida A&M, the Marching 100. These weren't just school bands. They were institutions within institutions. They created a visual language, a sound, a way of moving and performing that was distinctly, unapologetically Black. And once marching bands exploded in popularity, once they became cool, the entire culture shifted. Fast forward to 2013, Beyoncé releases Homecoming. Every single visual element, the formation, the dance moves, the choreography, the entire aesthetic, it's a direct homage to HBCU marching band culture. Beyoncé didn't invent that. Tuskegee invented it. FAMU invented it. Howard invented it. These universities created a blueprint for Black excellence in performance that shaped global pop culture. When the world was watching Beyoncé, they were watching 150 years of HBCU tradition translated into one of the biggest cultural moments in history. Then there's Greek life. Alpha Kappa Alpha, Delta Sigma Theta, Kappa Alpha Psi, Omega Psi Phi. These organizations didn't just happen at HBCUs. They were born at HBCUs, and they did something extraordinary. They created a structure for Black community leadership that outlasted college, a network that lifted up Black women, Black men, and entire Black communities for over a century. Before there was social media, before there was any kind of global platform, Greek life at HBCUs created the first viral moments in Black culture. Step shows, hand signs, call and response. It was performance. It was identity. It was power. It was a way of saying, we are here, we matter, we belong. But the most important culture born on HBCU campuses? Activism. The Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee started at an HBCU. The sit-ins that sparked the civil rights movement? HBCU students. When this country needed moral courage, when this country needed young people willing to risk everything for justice, where did we find them? On HBCU campuses. Because HBCUs taught students something different than other universities. They taught them, your education isn't just for you, it's for your people. That's a culture. That's a value system. And it changed America. It's still changing America today. So if HBCUs did all of this, if they shaped culture, produced leaders, created art, fueled movements, why doesn't anyone talk about them? Why aren't they household names? Why do most people not even know what an HBCU is? Systemic erasure. It's not an accident. It's a pattern. When Ivy League universities produce excellence, it's celebrated, publicized, amplified. When HBCUs produce excellence, the same or better excellence, it's footnoted, minimized, ignored. Look at funding. HBCUs serve 20% of Black undergraduate students, yet they receive less than 3% of higher education research funding. That's not because they're less capable. It's because they're less connected to mainstream power structures. And the media? For decades, mainstream media ignored HBCU culture entirely. When hip-hop was born, when it exploded in the 1980s and 90s, when it became a global phenomenon, the narrative was all about New York, about Los Angeles, about street culture. What wasn't in that narrative? That many of those pioneers came from or were influenced by HBCU networks. When marching band culture went viral on social media in the 2000s, people acted like it was a new discovery, like HBCUs invented it yesterday. No, these institutions had been perfecting it for 150 years in obscurity. It's a pattern of erasure so complete that even Black Americans don't always understand HBCU's true impact. You know Beyoncé's Homecoming? Iconic, cultural moment. But how many people know that the entire aesthetic comes from HBCUs? You know about the civil rights movement? Revolutionary, essential history. But how many people know that the people leading it were HBCU students? This is what systemic erasure looks like. Not denial, not hostility, just silence. And silence is deafening. It's the erasure of credit, the erasure of narrative, the erasure of truth. And it's been happening for generations. But here's what's critical to understand. HBCUs aren't relics of the past. They're actively, right now, saving Black culture and creating the future. In 2024 and 2025, HBCU students are shaping tech, media, business, politics, entertainment. They're not doing it because they're smarter than students elsewhere. They're doing it because they're in ecosystems that expect excellence from them. Howard University, one of the most prestigious HBCUs, is producing the next generation of Black tech entrepreneurs, journalists, and leaders. Kamala Harris is a Howard graduate. She didn't just become vice president. She did it as an unapologetically Black woman who learned her power at an HBCU. And in an interview, she said something that captures the entire point of this video. Howard didn't just teach me law. It taught me how to walk through the world as a black woman, unapologetically. That's the difference. That's what HBCUs do. They don't just educate, they empower. They don't just teach subjects. They teach you how to exist in the world with confidence, with pride, with purpose. Right now, at Spelman College, black women are becoming doctors, engineers, policymakers. At Morehouse College, black men are learning that excellence is their inheritance and their responsibility. At Howard, at FSU, at Lincoln University, at Tuskegee, students are creating the next phase of black culture, the next music movement, the next political revolution, the next innovation that will change how we see the world. And they're doing it in an environment that says, you belong here. You are brilliant. The world is waiting for you. That environment, that's the legacy of HBCUs. It's not about nostalgia. It's about continuation. It's about ensuring that the brilliance, the creativity, the resilience that HBCUs cultivated over 150 years doesn't disappear. It evolves. It grows. It becomes the next chapter of black excellence. And that chapter is being written right now. Think about everything we just covered. From freed slaves building institutions with their own hands in 1881, to leaders dismantling segregation in courtrooms in the 1960s, to artists redefining global culture in the 2000s and 2010s, to students right now shaping the future. HBCUs weren't just universities. They were shelters when the world was hostile. They were laboratories for black genius when black genius wasn't welcome anywhere else. They were schools of resistance, schools of culture, schools of survival, and they did it all with 3% of resources, 3% of the spotlight, 3% of the recognition. Yet somehow, they produced excellence that shaped a nation. That's not just an educational achievement. That's a miracle of resilience. They deserve to be talked about. They deserve to be understood. And they deserve to be supported because they're still saving us. If you learned something today, if you're seeing HBCUs differently now, share this. Send it to someone. Post it. Discuss it. Because this story needs to be told over and over until it's not a secret anymore. And here's what I want from you. Comment below. Which part of black culture do you think was shaped by HBCUs? Was it the music, the activism, the way we celebrate excellence? I'm reading every comment, and I want to hear your perspective. And if you want what comes next, because there's so much more to uncover, so many more stories that will change how you see this entire history, let me know. Subscribe, because we're just getting started. HBCUs saved black culture. Now it's time the world knew it.